All right, we are live back on the live stream. Welcome. We got some people in the chat, which is really cool. Michael Moore, brother Michael Moore, welcome, brother or Mr., but potentially soon to be Courtney. Welcome, Bucharest Red, who's got a book which we're going to talk about. Welcome as well. Throw something in the chat. Let me know you guys are here and what you want to talk about. Thank you, Michael, by the way, for sharing your sharing this with people. Let's see if we get some more people joining. I know people are super busy right now, so we'll see, though. We'll see who shows up. Thank you again. As always, I'm happy to discuss anything you guys want to talk about, but we're here specifically to talk about Freemasonry. So any questions you guys have, I've been a Mason, as I've said, since 2007. So I got a fair bit of experience, I think, as a Freemason, but I probably don't know everything. So by all means, let's just talk about whatever we want. Thank you for, I've got some people who actually were kind enough to even support this stream, this podcast on Patreon, which I really do appreciate. You can join for free, but if you want, you can, even $1 a month helps. Let me just, all right, I'm just going to put down the link in case anybody sees it. But I hope you guys will enjoy chatting. Michael, let me know what you want to talk about. Courtney, I can talk about some of the things I've been thinking about lately. I've been thinking about, amongst other things, the connections between Freemasonry and fine dining, or if there are any, because one of my favorite TV shows right now is The Bear. And because I love The Bear so much, I was thinking about doing a podcast episode potentially about Masons who are also chefs in fine dining. There's a lot apparently, and there's also a couple of lodges in England, from what I'm told, that are actually like dinner lodges. They only meet a couple times a year, but they actually take the time to put on like full fine dining courses, which or full fine dining like menus, which I think is really, really cool. So yeah, I think that could potentially be something worth exploring. I know there was a chef out of France who was nominated like the best chef in the world once upon a time, who was himself a Mason. So that's really cool. I'm thinking of posting about that. I'm thinking about maybe trying to do some more stuff on Medium. Oh, we got some people. Got some people outside driving pretty quick. So if you guys hear that, that's just some cars. But that is probably my main goal. So that's one thing in the chat. If you know of any Masons who are also chefs or have fine dining experience, please put so in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. And in the chat, let me know where you're from and what you want to talk about. I'm going to wait to see Bucharest Red. If you're there now, maybe I will see about posting your link to your book. But if you want to put anything in the chat about it, that would be much appreciated. As well as Michael Moore, if you want to post how you're doing, and anybody else who wants to join. I'll give people a couple seconds to jump in the chat, and then we'll start chatting. It's great to have some people watching and some people come and go, which is always how it's going to be. Oh, we got a few more people entering, so welcome everybody. Let me see. I'm just going to be right back in just 1 second. Sorry, I'm just trying to get Bucharest's message to see if I can share the link. By all means, please throw it down in the chat. Say hello, what you guys want to talk about, while I look for the link that Bucharest Red provided. I know it's out there somewhere. It sent to me through my Facebook account, which, by the way, if you guys would please be so kind as to follow along in the Facebook account, it really helps as well. Get this out. Let me see. So Robert here. All right. So I'm still here, I promise. Let me just... Okay, so it's Freemasonry, Navigating the Craft Beyond Initiation. And here it is here. So I'm just going to share it in the chat. So I think that link should have popped up. Let me just see. Excuse me, as I cough, if it goes through. Sometimes the links can be kind of tricky. Yep, here it is. So the link works. I'm going to share that screen so people can see it. By all means, let me know in the chat if you got the link and all that good stuff. So here it is. The perfect reference guide for newly apprentices and invaluable teaching aid for master masons and officers within the lodge. Freemasonry Navigating the Craft addresses many questions about Masonic responsibilities within the lodge and customs, ritual etiquette, ornaments, jewels, officers, furniture, etc. Just gonna let me know on the post if you've got a favorite so it's been sent. So, and actually Bucharest Red is part of the Masonic Global Chat, which is Michael Moore. As always, Masonic Global Zoom Chat happens every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. GMT, with a toast to absentia 4 p.m. or 9 p.m. So there you go. It's a great chat, and it's got a lot of Masons from around the world, actually. Romania, like Michael Moore, post in the chat if you could, how many people from all different lodges are showing up regularly? Like not different lodges, I should say, from different parts of the world are showing up regularly. Because I feel like you have brothers from, like I said, I know all in the States, England, Romania. Let me know where they're all coming from. That would be much appreciated. And then Courtney, your question, I've been studying the men, Albert Pike, very prominent Masons. I didn't know that his remains is behind his statue. I mean, I didn't know that either. So that's really cool if that's true. I'm guessing it's on Google. That's cool. I didn't know that either. I mean, I know Albert Pike, obviously. Dogmas and Morals, all that good stuff. He's pretty amazing. Um, but yeah, I think he's pretty like that's cool. So where'd you find that? Did you find it on Google or like in a book somewhere or online? Let me know where you found that. I would really appreciate it if you could. And Michael Moore, again, as always, the Masonic Global Zoom chat happens every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. GMT, with a toast to absent at 4 p.m. Eastern or 9 p.m. GMT. So, again, Michael Moore, if you could let me know how many people you have and where they're all from, because I feel like the global Zoom chat is really, really true. So it is truly a global. Oh, got somebody going. Hope he's okay. It truly is a global Zoom chat. Courtney, I recommend your podcast to Jeremy, my sponsor. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate everybody recommending it. That's really, really special. So thank you for the recommendation. Oh, there we go. Roughly 12 countries make regular appearances. I hope you don't mind. I know you're probably working as well. You're often working, but if you could take a moment and list them, I'd love to know which ones they are. There's USA, England, Romania, I'm going to guess, but if you listed 12 countries. And Courtney, thank you for the recommendation. If you don't mind me asking, did your sponsor know about it before you recommended it, or is he discovering it for the first time? Because I'm always happy to get recommendations, but I'm hoping people can find it organically as well. That would be really cool. Oh, hey, Harry, how's it going? I finally got the chat on my cell phone. My computer is. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, the computer is acting up. Hopefully, we can. I'd say I'm not the best at computers by any means, but hopefully, we can find a way to get it fixed. It's computers can be frustrating, put it that way. But I'm happy it's working on your phone. On your phone, at least. As I was saying, in terms of the podcast, there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about. And coming up recently, I've got some interviews planned with some different groups of people. I'm trying to get some interviews with some different Masonic officers here in Ontario, so I'm working on that. So we'll see. I've also, like I said, I've been contacting some different people. One group I really want to speak to, but I haven't been able to yet, is or something is professors to discuss memory. Obviously, Freemasonry and memory are pretty highly linked. In terms of obviously memory work, right, is a pretty important part of Freemasonry and a very vital part of Freemasonry. So I think that there's been a lot of research in like parts of the brain that focus on memory, how memory works, how if you get injured, you can like your brain elasticity can change, and then you can discover new ways to memorize things, which I think is really special. And the work in that regard, as well as different types of memorization, rote memorization versus experiential memorization, ways people learn. Some people have to memorize by. So I think that's really fascinating and really, really special. And so I'm hoping to get some professors on the podcast to discuss memorization, like I said. And there's actually some professors doing some fascinating work where they actually like attach a helmet to somebody's head and they study brain waves as they're memorizing. Um, and by doing so, they're able to see the parts of the brain that are responsible for memorization. And also, and this is something I'd love to see, but I don't know how I do it. If there is some way we could take that equipment and put it on somebody while they, I'm trying to think of the word, is while they're performing ritual somehow. We couldn't share the ritual they're performing, but we could share the, um, what's the word? We could share the results of the brainwaves maybe. And so as somebody's performing ritual, does it affect what's happening in their brain and their brainwaves and their brain activities? And in what way? I've heard there's a lot of really positive benefits to it from like a brain age capacity, if that makes sense. Actually, the more work that you do with this memorization stuff, the younger your brain gets, if that makes any sense. Or you're able to like reverse age a little bit on your brain and you're able to memorize more, it becomes younger. I think it's just like exercise, right? Even though you're getting older physically or in terms of age, like years you were born, even though you're getting older chronologically, if that makes any sense, then you still, by exercise and stuff, you can kind of reverse some of those negatives and some of the negative aspects of aging and maybe live longer. And again, the exercises will change as you get older. It'll be more strenuous when you're younger. It'll switch over and it'll switch over and become, I don't know what the word is. It'll switch over and it'll become more light as you get older, but it's still important to exercise your muscles and all that. And in the same way, it's still important to exercise your brain. So different ways that ritual is there. Okay, so Michael Moore, the countries that take part in the global Zoom chat: England, Scotland, Ireland, United States, Canada, Poland, Chile, United Arab Emirates, Romania, Austria, Australia, Switzerland, and Kenya. So wow, so that's awesome to hear. I'd love to learn more about Freemasonry in Kenya. I don't know a ton about it, to be honest. I have actually a brother who is our junior warden. He's from, if I recall correctly, Kenya. I'd have to double check, but he's from Africa. He joined a lodge in Africa, but it was chartered under the United Grand Lodge of England, which I think is really, really cool. A lot of lodges, I guess, in Africa are chartered under UGLE. I don't know if Kenya actually has a Grand Lodge per se, or if it's all chartered under UGLE, but I am trying to do a podcast with them because Freemasonry in Africa is not something I know a ton about. So I want to learn more about it. The older you get, the harder it is for memory. This is from Harry. The older you get, the harder it is for memory. I am not learning anything new, but the charges I do are getting better. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way about. I see with guys who, sorry, Dad, I don't mean to imply this, but I feel like with guys who are older, not saying you're old, Dad, they tend to, they don't necessarily take on new lectures or new charges, but the charges that they do take on are getting like they so long as they keep doing those charges, they always do them really well and they get better over time, which is like practice, right? It almost becomes like a reflex. So I think that makes sense to me. It's sometimes harder to pick up new lectures, but the ones you've been doing for a while, you continue to get better on them as you go. So yeah, I think that's cool. Tony Podcast Coolest Life on YouTube. I'll check it out. I'll check out the Tony podcast. What's it about, if you don't mind my asking, Courtney? He might have, but I still recommend it. And definitely when I go to the lodge. I appreciate that very, very much. I appreciate the recommendations on both sides of it. So thank you so much. I just got a message. Michael Moore, if you're still watching, if you could put in the chat, how many like of those ones that you're mentioning, how often, like, do they all come pretty regularly, or do you find some countries come more often than others? What would you say is the standard in terms of numbers? Like, where do you say the most of your audience comes from? Or most of, I guess it's not audience is the right word. I'm so used to YouTube. I'm saying audience. Just in terms of the participants, do you find they're mostly from the United States or mostly from England, or wherever it is? Right? Where are they mostly from? Um, I think that my suspicion is England or United States, but let me know. Let me know also, Michael Moore, what your thoughts are. And that's the standard per meeting. The total is a drop of maybe 15 to 30, depending on the time of night. Okay, so that's a standard, meaning like standard from United States and America and England. English, Scotland, US, Canada are the majority. That's really cool. Well, I think it's awesome that you, like I said, and it's been going on since the pandemic, right? Put it down in the chat. I mean, maybe even pre-pandemic a little bit. It's only Masons though, right? So Courtney, I don't think you can take part yet because it's still just for Masons at this point, but hopefully soon. But it's for Masons of any rank, right? You can be an entered apprentice, or you can be whatever it might be. So it started during the pandemic, because I was trying to remember when exactly, because I remember getting the invite. I really should get back to them. I feel bad. The problem is my lodge meetings are on Thursdays, so it's really hard for me to get there. But I try to I got to get back there at some point, because they were a lot of fun and they was really impressive. Yeah, it continues. It's been going on since the pandemic has hit. So, well, no, it's really, really cool though. The work that you guys have done. I think that the work has been really impressive. So you should be impressed by it. And I don't think people realized during the pandemic just how important those just how impressive and important, I should say, just how important those meetings were, because when we couldn't meet in person because we were locked down, without the social connections that were provided by Zoom meetings, and in Ontario they had go-to meetings and whatever else it is that they had, it was like you really needed those social outlets. And I think, a lot of people took advantage of them. And one of the things that I really think was important, and I'm hoping we can continue with it, is more social meetings, right? More virtual meetings. I do think they have a really valuable place in them, even for lodges that are meeting in person. Some of those valuable places are bringing in guest speakers cheaply or for free. If you are a Masonic Lodge and you have an in-person meeting and you want to bring in a guest speaker, he has to drive down from Toronto or drive from wherever or fly. I mean, who knows who it could be, right? Or you're kind of limited to people in your area who can make it there. But in terms of virtual meetings, you don't have that limitation, right? Somebody can jump on a Zoom link and they can be from Scotland, they can be from England, they can be from, I mean, anywhere in the world, basically. And so long as they don't mind the time change, they're able to take part in your virtual meeting. And you can have presentations. During the pandemic in my lodge, we had presentations on we had presentations from brothers in Scotland. We had presentations from brothers in Missouri, and this is all in Windsor, Ontario, I should say. So Windsor, Ontario, we had presentations from brothers in Scotland. We had brothers in from Romania. We had brothers in from Missouri, from Winnipeg, all giving kind of presentations on any number of topics, right? And then the other thing that you can do that I think is really fun is you could have like virtual events. So we did a virtual wine and beer night, which was really special, which is where I'm trying to think what the word is, where we actually sent out packages of beer and cheese to people. Like we delivered them because obviously we couldn't have an in-person meeting. So we delivered these packages and it was labeled. So it was like 3 different types of beer, 3 different types of cheese, and 3 different types of meat that were put together by a brewery. And then we actually did a virtual beer where we came online and the brewmaster, I don't know what you call it, the person who did the brewing, actually like did a led us in the tasting. So he was like, the beer labeled beer A, try it with the cheese labeled cheese A and the meat labeled meat A, and why it is that you tasted them that way and how you're supposed to taste them and why they paired those things and the process that went into making the beer, and the tastes and all that stuff. And so he led us through the entire thing, right? And even though it was virtual, it was still a lot of fun. And we also did another whiskey tasting, which is the same thing. We created little bottles of whiskey that were like labeled A, B, C. They were local. And then we had a whiskey expert come in and chat with us about what the type of whiskey, how it comes from, where it comes from, the different tastes, how it's made. And that was a lot of fun too. So I really enjoyed that as well. So yeah, it was really special to do those things. And obviously it's more fun to meet in person. I think it's more enjoyable to meet in person, but when you do have there are certain benefits to meeting virtually. The other benefit obviously is brothers who have traveled far away. Right? If you are a brother who is living in, say, Winnipeg or Saskatchewan or wherever it is, and your mother lodge is in Windsor, you can still take part in the virtual meeting. You can't take part in an in-person meeting, obviously, because of the cost, or England or whatever it is. And the other benefit is for brothers who might be sick. So they might not be able to get out their arms or whatever it is, their legs might be not working right, or their arms, or they might have medical issues which make it so they can't get where they need to go. But in such cases, again, a virtual meeting, the benefit is, right? The benefit is that you can still let them take part. I've even thought sometimes what maybe during our refreshments, because we're not allowed to record meetings for obvious reasons, but during refreshments, actually taking the time to like set up a camera. So while we're eating or having refreshment, you can have a camera set up and a screen, and you can see brothers who you couldn't otherwise have joined. And maybe even, I don't know what the right word is, maybe even send them something. Like you could, if the lodge is having a certain type of food, maybe the junior warden could make a care package and send it to them. And then they could take part that way, if that makes any sense. So I think that could be really cool. If that makes sense, let me know what you think of that in the chat. If you think that'd be a good idea or something worth exploring. The idea particularly about setting up a camera and a screen during like the refreshment hour of a lodge. And maybe, like I said, sending whatever you're having, sending a package to the brothers so we could enjoy the same food as the other brothers while they're having their refreshments. Tony is his name. He's a Mason who travels to Masonic lodges all over the world. It's called Masonic Coolest Life. I'm going to check that out for sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Bucharest Red, I see that you've already mentioned tomorrow's Global Masonic Chat Group Zoom meeting. Yes, Michael did that. Thank you so much. I also, Bucharest, I don't know if you saw, but I put a link to your book up at the top, and I shared the screen to show it off. So hopefully other people will maybe purchase it. It looks like a great work. I think we talked about it actually before. Hello, Bucharest Red. On a different subject, I've just been watching the opening of the Paris Olympics or the Paralympics. Paralympics. Well, what'd you think of them? Let me know in the comments that are in the chat what you thought of them. I haven't had a chance to watch them. I've been too busy. So it's been pretty tough. I've been too busy to watch them, but I'm sure they're going to go great. I used to be a track athlete. I've known a few Paralympic athletes. Those athletes are legit. There's no question about that. They are very tough. And just amazing athletes. Bucharest Red, if you want to. Oh, in Romania, virtual meetings were a godsend. We not only had our regular Masonic chats, but also included Masonic and general knowledge quizzes. Yeah, okay. So there you go. So even quizzes, right? Talking about fun things that you can do. Talking about like fun things that you can do when it comes to a virtual meeting. You can have a quiz. And I think that having a quiz, like, did you do it? How'd you do it? So was it just one person asking questions and other people were answering them? Or did you have like polls? Bucharest Red during the COVID period. Okay, cool. During the COVID period. Yeah, I figured when you're saying we're a godsend, you meant during the COVID period. They were a godsend here too. They were a godsend or in a lot of different locations. So yeah. I was basically the quiz master. Okay, so you would ask the question and then you would just whoever would answer. Did you have prizes or anything like that? Or like how'd you come up with the questions? Did you do research beforehand? Or anything to that extent? I always try to mix it up to keep everyone interested. Okay, was it primarily or like exclusively Masonic quizzes that you did? Or did you also bring in like pop culture or other types of things? And while you're answering that, I'll be right back because I'm going to run and grab a drink because I am thirsty. But don't go anywhere. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Just going to move the fan out of the way. Masonic and general knowledge. Just opening up my pop. All right. Cool. That is awesome. And I'm sure that they, like you said, and it took people's minds off of things too, right? Like, it's so easy to, I don't know what the, all the work that we did to, like everybody's going to be super nervous. It's during COVID, right? So everybody's scared, especially at the start. We don't know what it is. We're sitting there, maybe we're quarantined or whatever it is, and maybe we know people who've got COVID, or we know of people secondhand who have COVID, and so obviously we're super nervous about that. And to actually like have something to take your mind off of it, to have the chance to do a Masonic quiz or a general knowledge quiz, or meet with your brothers virtually or online and actually talk about something other than COVID, which everybody, it felt like, was just, that's all they were talking about all day, right? Was COVID, COVID, COVID. So to have something else to talk about was probably really special and really important. And I felt the same way with our Masonic meetings. It's like something else to talk about and something else to chat about. And so, yeah, I would consider what you did there with the quizzes a kind of a public service, a Masonic public service. So you say here, Masonic and general knowledge, tracing boards, working tools, etc. Yeah, great. That's very, very cool. Like I said, I would consider that a public service. Harry, it was really good. Oh, the virtual or the Paralympics, it was really good. One country had the second tallest man in the world at 8 feet 1 inches. So a super tall dude indeed. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Which country was that, Dad? Do you remember? Let me know. Courtney, you are welcome as well. Thank you, Courtney, by the way, for jumping in and being part of Patreon. I really do appreciate that. If anybody else wants to be a part of Patreon as well, I think I'll have to chat up there. I'll put it in the chat again. You can always jump in and join. Just make sure that if you do, you get me your address so I can send you some correspondence. It's much appreciated. In terms of what was I saying? So yeah, so there's that. You can join for free. That's the thing too. You don't have to like pay. You can just be a member for free. But then I do post sometimes some special things on YouTube, on Patreon, that I don't post anywhere else. In terms of, and you are welcome, Bucharest Red, for putting up a link to your book. And I shared the screen. I can share it again in a second, so we can keep on. I can encourage other people to check it out as well. Michael Moore, if you're still there, I think I asked you this, but I forget if you answered in the chat. Just for Courtney and stuff, just to confirm, to take part in the global Zoom chat, you need to be a Mason, correct? Like even entered apprentice, there's no issue in terms of the rank, right? Like anybody can join, who, as long as you're a Mason, whether you're entered apprentice, a master Mason, a past master, whatever it might be. In terms of, I'm just going to share the screen one more time to talk about this book. Just give me one sec. So you absolutely need to be a Mason to join the chat. Out of with Square and Compass's work, which is I always try to make sure that Masons or non-Masons can get something out of it. And as for non-Masons, right, with Square and Compass podcast, you can still get something from it and answer any questions. Same thing with these live streams. Like Courtney, it's great to have you on. But there is also a real value to having online spaces that are exclusively Mason. So both have a lot of value. And so so like Courtney, keep on taking part in these streams, obviously, but once you're a Mason, I know you said you have a meeting September 1st with your sponsor. There are some exclusively Masonic spaces as well. Even on Facebook, there are some Facebook groups that before you join, you have to provide proof that you are a Mason. And when you provide proof, then you can jump into the the Facebook group and chat and everything else. So there is that, so there's both value in both. I always say plenty of sand in the sandbox. If that makes any sense. Yes, any degree can attend, but they have to be regular and recognized. Okay, yeah, so there you go. And recognized, for people who don't know what that means, that just means you can't, like, regular and recognized, right? It means, for lack of, the way I'll put it is, you have to be a lodge that's recognized by UGLE, United Grand Lodge of England. I think is the simplest way to put it, right? So you can't be part of like Bob's Masonic Garage, where you got initiated with 2 people in a garage somewhere, and with some secondhand book that he found in a store. You have to be part of a lodge that's recognized by UGLE or something like that. If that makes any sense, that's how I describe that. There are different modes of recognition and different types of recognition. So yeah. Bucharest Red, I hope you saw that I shared the screen, and I hope you get some good answers or some good results from it. Maybe you'll get some people on here buying some of your books. Because I'd recommend they do. The more you read about Freemasonry, the better your Masonic career will be, especially after you become a Mason. We also have the Toast to Absent Brethren at 9 p.m. UK time. Sorry, is that on Thursdays? Like, is that during your Zoom chat, or is that every day? I think I took part in a couple of those toasts as well. Toast to Absent Brethren every Thursday on the Zoom chat. Yeah, I think I do recall taking part in them before, and really taking part in a few. I think one time I like took a picture and sent it out of me with like a glass, with like my Masonic glass, doing a toast to the Absent Brethren at 9 p.m. UK time, which was, I think it was like, I don't remember. I think it was like 3 p.m. our time or something. I think you're 6 hours ahead, or 5, so maybe 4 p.m. Something like that. Courtney Duffy. Cameron, my mom just gave me my grandfather's Knight Commander ring, but she said wait until I'm in. Yes, I think that's awesome too. I do agree, as a general rule. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but as a general rule, it's better to wait until I'm in. Wait till you're in, I should say, in order to wear Masonic regalia and Masonic items. And sometimes it's even better to wait. Talk to your sponsor about it. But sometimes it's even better to wait until you get your 3rd degree, because if you're wearing like a Masonic ring or even if you join the Knights Commandery first, because if you're wearing like a Knights Commandery ring or a Masonic ring and you're an entered apprentice, you may have Master Masons speaking to you thinking you're a Master Mason, and then they may try to share secrets with you that you're not ready for or you shouldn't know yet or whatever it is. So my recommendation is it's better to hold off until you reach the appropriate rank. Or if you meet a Mason and he sees your ring and he starts talking to you, just be very clear right away, right, that you are a entered apprentice still. And always, I always recommend even signing the book in the same way, right? When you're signing a book, register. I always recommend, guys, you don't have to, but sometimes there's even a space for it. Sometimes there's not. That you put like an EA next to it, your name, or FC, or whatever rank you are at the time, PM, MM, something like that. Because I think it's a good habit to get into, in my opinion. Bucharest Red. The book has been very well received, especially by EAs and FCs. Okay, so good. I'm glad to hear it. Just out of curiosity, kind of like the same questions I was asking Michael Moore. You had mentioned, right, that so we have the global Zoom chat. From your book, are you find it's getting sold all over the world? Like, is there any locations that it's getting purchased in more? Like, where would you say is the most common spaces that you're selling it? I'm guessing in America, but I could be wrong. So I'd be really curious to know what your sales are like globally and where you're finding, if you're finding one place in particular that has more traction. And also, how much, and if you would know, how much of your book is being purchased by individual Masons? And how much of your book is being purchased by like Masonic lodges or Masonic bodies to put into their libraries, if that makes any sense? Because I feel like that's one thing that sometimes gets overlooked, is that a lot of Masonic lodges, they have the space. They could easily put in a Masonic library or even a bookshelf filled with Masonic books. And a lot of them don't, which is really unfortunate. So, I think that, so I do think that there's a real value in Masonic lodges purchasing books for lodge members and then having a way to like keep track of who checks it out, who doesn't. We have a librarian in Windsor, right? And so that way, if a Mason wants to learn more about the craft, he can grab his book. The US, Canada, the UK, and Japan, and Australia. Awesome. So to like 5 different countries spread pretty far. So that must make you really proud. And all personal purchases so far. Well, I hope that maybe if anybody's watching this and you're with a Masonic Lodge, or you can talk to your Masonic Lodge, Courtney, your sponsor, maybe suggest they pick up his book and put it in their library for other brothers to kind of review as necessary. I may obviously be a little biased, but I believe every lodge should hold a copy. Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. I agree. And not just that book, not that I'm saying, you're obviously your book, but Morals and Dogma would be really helpful. There's a lot of really valuable books out there that people need to be watching and seeing. So and actually Michael Moore can maybe mention this. If he has any books that he thinks need to go in Masonic libraries, that'd be really fun to see as well. Or Dad, if you have any ideas of any Masonic books that should be in libraries, same thing. By the way, Worshipful Brother Lee Eccleston is doing a lecture for a Virginia Research Lodge, and it's an online so the Virginia Lodge of Research, I'm assuming. Do you know when it is? like when it's taking place. If it's taking place now, I wouldn't even be okay. So I was about to say, if it's taking place now, I wouldn't even be sad if people went to that instead of this. As long as you're going to different things, that's what matters. But September 14th, is it with the Virginia Lodge of Research, like with Chris, who's a really cool dude, by the way? He's actually was on the podcast way back in the day. So hopefully maybe he can join at some. Okay, cool. Hopefully he can join at some point because I really liked his work. The right, and if I recall correctly, Virginia is not tiled. I think non-Masons can join as well, but I could be mistaken. It will be worth joining. Lee is an excellent speaker. What do you know what the topic is, Michael Moore or Bucharest? Do you know what the topic is that he'll be discussing? Yeah, I thought it was public. From what I recall, I think I went to a few of them and they were public as well. So do you know the like what it is that he's going to be discussing? I can look it up on Facebook, actually. I know I follow the Virginia Lodge of Research, and actually I post a lot of Square and Compass stuff on the research page as well. Book of Ruth as it's relevant to Freemasons. That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know if you heard or if you have any ideas about topics you would like to discuss. Like from the podcast, I was saying kind of what I want to talk about is speak to professors, neurologists, neuroscientists, brain surgeons, kind of a combination thereof about the value of the necessity of memory work, and not the necessity of memory work, more the connection between memory work and the brain and brain pathways and neural pathways and how the brain actually works when it's memorizing things and the different types of memory, short term and long term. And I even saw this thing. It was really cool. It was like a helmet they put on your head, and it examines the ways in which or like it tracks your brain patterns, if that makes any sense. Or it tracks the way in which your brain operates. So as you're memorizing stuff, it actually records your brain patterns. And then it shows the different parts of your brain that are responsible for different parts of memory. And then also when you're reciting things that you've memorized, it also scans your brain and does the same thing. It discovers the parts of your brain that are responsible for memory, and not just for holding the memories, but recalling the memories and then sharing them and expressing them and all that stuff. So I think that that's a really valuable and really important element. But grabbing dinner, but I'm leaving the stream running for your algorithm. Thank you so much. Let me know what you're having for dinner. Throw it in the chat. Also, Bucharest, you had mentioned at the start of this chat, you said good morning. So good morning to you too. What time is it over in Romania? Because it is almost 7 o'clock here, Eastern time. So I'm curious what time it might be in Bucharest. I've got some more stuff I've done on social media that I want to share. Make sure you follow the live stream and everything else or not the live stream, sorry. Make sure you follow Facebook because I always try to post these on Facebook. I've been having I'll get a copy doing it now. Hey, thank you, Courtney, for getting a book from Bucharest Red. Thank you, Bucharest Red, for sharing the info. I think I always try to share the links to these live streams. Oh, so just approaching 2 a.m. So you're a trooper, Bucharest Red. Thank you for being part of the podcast here. Just approach, yeah. So thank you for taking part. But hey, sounds like somebody might be getting a copy of your book. So hope this was worth it for you. The other things that I've been thinking about with Freemasonry, I mentioned this at the start, Freemasonry and fine dining. I'd also like to do more stories related to Freemasonry and I'm trying to think of the word now, like Freemasonry and its government or administration, particularly as it relates to Grand Lodges, right? I just did a podcast about the Board of General Purposes here in Ontario, which I thought was really special because a lot of brothers don't really understand what the Board of General Purposes is, or what it does, or how it works. And a lot of brothers, I think, and Michael, you can kind of talk to me when you're back, or Chris, you can talk to me as well. I think a lot of members, they kind of don't understand what a lodge of, like how Grand Lodge actually administers a lodge, and how it operates and how it works, and what Grand Lodge does. And so a lot of times in a lodge meeting, somebody will bring up like, oh, Grand Lodge is doing this, or Grand Lodge is doing that, or Grand Lodge wants this, or Grand Lodge wants that. But they won't actually take the time to explain what a Grand Lodge actually is, or under which authority it operates, or what it does, or anything to that effect. So I think that is an important thing that needs to be discussed. And also the differences in jurisdictions is something that I find really interesting, right? Not every jurisdiction, for example, has a board of general purposes, or has every pretty much has a grand master, but they don't always have the same offices, right? Like grand orator, that's not something that we have in Ontario, but to my knowledge, but they have it in Texas. So there's a lot of really special knowledge to be shared there, which I worry doesn't often get shared. So that's my thought. Even Bucharest, like the administration of Freemasonry in Romania, right? Like I'm guessing it's pretty I don't know what the right word is. I'm guessing it's pretty similar to Ontario, right? I'm sure you have a Grand Master. I know, right? And I know we have recognition, but in terms of like, do you have district deputy Grand Masters? Do you do official reports? Like, what is the process by which it's administered? And would you say that you've noticed the same problems I have in terms of like, or same concerns I have in terms of like, the ability to like the knowledge that the average member has about their Grand Lodge, or about what Grand Lodge does, or how it operates? Because I think that that's a really interesting, like I said, a really valuable question, a really valuable topic that needs to be explored more, because I don't think it's getting explored near enough. And I don't even think, and Bucharest Red, Harry, Michael, you can let me know if you agree or disagree. I don't think it gets discussed enough in Lodge. Like, how often does the average member, know, or how often does the average Lodge, let's say Worshipful Master, Secretary, how often do they take the time to discuss with a newer brother what the Grand Lodge is, and what it does, and how it operates? I know that in our lodges, and again, let me know if this is the same in other places. When we have an initiation, we always present the candidate with a copy of the Constitution from Grand Lodge and our bylaws. And he's told to study this because it's kind of how we operate. But first of all, how many people are actually going to do it in just crazy busy life? But also, how many are going to I'm trying to think what the word is. How many times are you going to follow up? Like, if you talk about a Grand Lodge, anything, initiative in your meeting, and nobody asks any questions, are you going to go and approach a newer Mason after the meeting and just say like, hey, did you know what we were talking about? Because he maybe if he's especially brand new, he might be kind of nervous about asking questions. That doesn't mean there's not a value in approaching him afterwards and checking with him. So let me know. Like I said, if you want to discuss, let me know. Bucharest Red, Dad, Michael, let me know what you think of that. If you would agree or disagree, or what your thoughts are on Grand Lodge. And we once again have a rainstorm happening here. So it has been like a crazy amount of storming here in Windsor. I don't know what the weather's like over there in Romania, Bucharest, or well, Michael's just across the pond, across the river. Jesus. So, yeah. I think yeah, really been coming down. All right. It is a great point that you are raising, Ari Grand Lodge. Many EAs and FCs are not taught enough about the workings and value of Grand Lodge. I will raise this question when we are back at work. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And again, it doesn't have to be, maybe even, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. You guys can let me know what your ideas are, but maybe even like 5 minutes of 5 minutes dedicated at the end of your meeting to like some Masonic rule. It doesn't even have to be a Grand Lodge rule per se, right? It could be like a lodge rule, like why is this bylaw? What does it mean? What happens if it's contravened? But it could also be a actual proper Grand Lodge rule of like, this is what's in the Constitution in this section. This is how we're able to collect whatever it is, dues or something to that effect. So I think that there's a lot of value in it, and maybe spending 5 minutes a meeting, or maybe during refreshment, if the meeting goes long, taking a couple people aside and chatting with them about it. Harry, if you're still around, let me know what you think of that idea. Michael, if you are done with your dinner, you can let me know what you think as well. And you can also take that and apply it kind of to other facets of Freemasonry as well. Like how many people understand the ritual work? I don't know how many people understand the definition of certain words. Like in your ritual, how many guys just kind of understand different ritual work or whatever it is, right? I think that a lot of times, again, and a newer guy may be a little bit too shy or nervous to ask questions. So this is the chance to really ask questions. And again, you can't do it during a degree, obviously, right? You couldn't, in the middle of a lecture, the candidate's not going to stop you and say like, wait, what does that word mean? Or the lecturer is not going to stop and say, did you know what that word meant? You're just going to get through it. But after that, you have the chance to really practice with them. That's the time to ask those questions. I mean, I think even during mentoring, like one of the issues I've seen develop in different lodges in the States and Canada and everywhere is, you know, a brother's doing his memory work. He has the word memorized, but he doesn't actually know what it means, if that makes any sense. So he's just repeating something without really understanding what it is or what it means, which is obviously a pretty, you know, I think a pretty big deal, right? So that's why whenever I'm doing any lectures, or not lectures, but when I'm mentoring a brother and teaching him a lecture, I always try to ask him, like, that thing you just repeated, what does it mean to you? What do those words mean to you? Do you know what the definition of those words are? Not every, you know, there are some uncommon words there. So I do think that that can be a pretty valuable tool. Board of general purpose is like a house cleaner, sorting the wheat from the chaff to make the Grand Master's term in office easier and point him in the right direction. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it, to be honest. I've never heard that expression before. I don't know if somebody taught it to you that way, but well, you were a Grand Lodge officer, so you would know, right, Dad? You were a Grand Lodge officer, very worshipful, Grand Steward, I think, something like that. So, Board of general purpose is just like a house cleaner, sorting the wheat from the chaff to make the Grand Master's term in office easier and point him in the right direction. I like that. That's a good way to describe it. Board of general purpose. So yeah, and thank you, Bucharest Red for raising the question when you get back to work. The right, and then so again, it goes back to that question I was asking before, like how many people would understand that, right? Like, and not just new Masons, by the way, for whatever it's worth. There are a lot of old school Masons who maybe have been Masons for many years, who never really learned what the Board of General Purposes are or is, or what the Grand Master actually does, or what any of that stuff is. So I think that's really I think it's really important to check and recheck again. You know, people forget as well. Sorry, brother. 2:10 a.m. Time for me to retire. I look forward to our next meeting. Yeah, I look forward to our next meeting as well. I've been doing these so often, and they've always been a lot of fun. Usually, I try to do them more during the day at like noon, but maybe I'll try to do one tomorrow again in the evening a little bit. We'll see. But thank you so much for joining Bucharest Red as always. Thank you for sharing your book with us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing the information that you shared with us. Really appreciate it. So yeah, anybody else wants to jump in the chat? I'm going to see if I can maybe invite a few people, see if anybody wants to show up. Our lodge has a general purpose meeting 2 weeks before a regular meeting for the same reason. So the business is kept to a minimum and lodge education can be expounded on. And that's what a lot of people are doing, right? That's a really interesting point is a lot of lodges are going to this pattern of they have a separate meeting where they decide how they're going to deal with business, like bills to pay, elections in some cases, whatever it might be. And then they kind of they figure out what they're going to do. Then when they get to the lodge meeting itself, they've already decided what they're going to do, so they pound that stuff out really quickly, and then from there they can focus on education and expound on, because a lot of people feel like the lodge business is not itself like the lodge business can get kind of boring and drone on, and people aren't that interested in it, but focus on the education. And I think I agree with that, though there is something to be said for taking the time to, like, are the minutes being read or whatever it is, like, are the accounts being passed? Because again, if you're a newer, not even a newer Mason necessarily, but let's say not a very active Mason who comes to lodge irregularly, and how much do you know necessarily about the bills that are being paid or the lodge bank balances or whatever it is? And in those cases, if the business is dealt with quickly, do brothers necessarily know what's happening or what's going on? Or the other question is, do they really care about that stuff, right? There are a lot of people who say, the average member isn't concerned about the typical lodge business, right? The average member is interested in the education and the ritual. That famous quote of, like, George Washington didn't join to hear the minutes read, which I'm not sure how I feel about that as an idea. I think there is some value sometimes in taking a little bit of time to go through the business with some new people. Also, you are not exposed to lodge visitors at the regular meeting. Well, I mean, you can have people visit at the regular meeting, right? Like, it depends what was happening with the meeting, I suppose. But I've had the chance. I've been lucky enough to visit a few of your regular meetings, and that's always been special, and a lot of fun. So yeah. The oh, I see what you're saying. Um, well, I'm just going to. I mean, yeah. I mean, well, yeah. So you have your degrees, right? I mean, there has been even discussion here and there about, like, do we? I don't think it's ever going to happen, but some people have been suggesting that we go to a model where you have, like, the worshipful master, treasurer, and secretary, and they're responsible for lodge administration, and you basically do away with business meetings, right? You just have your lodge. You have them kind of act in their roles and pay the bills and stuff, and you don't really need to have business meetings per se. And then you just switch to the only thing you have are degrees and special events and occasions. The argument being, the reason people join Masonry and not other groups is the one thing Masonry has different is the one thing Masonry has that's different is ritual, right? And so if you want, a business style meeting, you can join the Rotary Club or you can join any number of other groups. But if you actually are interested in ritual, then Freemasonry, that's what it's offering. And so that's what the focus should be on. I think there's some value in that, to be honest. But I don't think that would ever happen. At least in Ontario, the number of different constitutional changes that you'd have to make would be through the roof. But I think that's still valuable, one way or the other, if that makes any sense. Yeah. I think Michael Moore is probably still on the grabbing some dinner. Bucharest Red had to go to sleep because it's 2:10 in the morning. I got my pops here and I got some other friends here. Hit the like button if you haven't done so yet, the thumbs up. That helps other people find the podcast. I may have my friend on again, Nicholas Romita. I hope you guys enjoyed it when he was on last time. And he talked about the supernatural and the paranormal and all that stuff. That was really fun because I love all that stuff. And I think that it gets, I wish more people took part in that. I love spooky things, even though I don't know if I believe it or not believe it or whatever. It's fun. Yeah, we hold degrees on different nights. So do we. So do most lodges. So what some people have been suggesting is you just, instead of having 2 meetings a month, 1 business, 1 degree, you just hold 1 meeting a month, make that a degree meeting, and the business of the lodge be dealt with by the administrators, by the treasurer, secretary, and treasurer, secretary, and worshipful master. So yeah, if that makes any again, I don't think it ever happened. The constitutional changes, but I think what they're really saying is, at least in my experience, people are kind of voting with their feet in some ways, and they're not really taking part in in-person meetings, as much as they're taking part in. They're not taking part in business meetings as much as they are taking part in degrees and special events. And so that's where the focus needs to be. Seems to be what a lot of people are arguing. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I don't know if Michael Moore, if you can jump in and what you maybe are thinking about that, or if you found something similar. But yeah, most do. I mean, there are times, in fairness, to be perfectly fair, there are times when you'll do a business meeting and a degree meeting, both at the same time. You have maybe a shortened business meeting because there are only so many more nights in the month. So, or Thursdays in a month, whatever day your lodge meets. So you may have to combine the two and have a shortened business meeting followed by a degree. That happens. You do double degrees. I know there are some places in the States where they'll put aside a day, like a Saturday, and they'll have an entire like 10 meetings in a row, or something to that effect. So scary movies. You never mentioned Tommy Knocker's Knock. I did mention that. Not this stream, but in the streams in the past. I did mention that, though. Tommy Knocker is one of my. I saw that in England with you, and you scared me while I was watching it. So I think Grandma Lily got mad at you when you did that. But yeah, I don't worry. I did remember it. I mentioned it in other streams. I've got the book actually still, on which it was based. Right, I got it there, so you guys can see it. Tommy Knockers. Courtney Duffy, I am present still and shall be, but I also like to pay attention and listen. Your grandfather was a smart man. I knew somebody who said you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you speak, which I think is probably pretty good advice. Not that I always follow it. I probably have a tendency to talk more than I have a tendency to speak, but that's a whole separate issue. And listening also is really good in Freemasonry, right? Because you're going to get a lot of, I don't know what the word is. You're going to get a lot of lectures and a lot of people discussing things with you, or not even discussing things with you, but just a lot of lectures. And it can be really hard because there's so much going on in life, especially. And if it's a degree, and you're just joining for the first time, actually taking the time to I don't know what taking the time to be present. That was actually something that they talked about in that book that I really like, Unreasonable Hospitality, right? Taking the time to be present is critical, and not like, so the example that he gave in the book Unreasonable Hospitality, which I really like, is he was out in the, so it's about a restaurant that got the #1 restaurant designation in the world. And the way they got it was by focusing on something called unreasonable hospitality. And an example of that was the owner said that he was out in the front cleaning off a table, which again, just the fact that the owner was willing to clean off the table, I think is pretty impressive. But then he was out there and he was listening to diners in the dining room, and one of them he overheard mentioned that they were visiting New York and they had had all these amazing experiences, but the one thing they didn't try was a authentic New York City hot dog. And so he said, I'm going to he actually left his restaurant and bought a New York City street vendor hot dog, and then plated it fancy because it was a fancy restaurant, and served it to them. But he said, like, if he hadn't been present in that moment, if he had been thinking about his laundry that he has to do, or his whatever else, if he's thinking about his dog, or been thinking about the bills he has to pay, or thinking about whatever problems he's had in his life, he would not have heard them speaking, and he wouldn't have been able to get them, give them that moment. And in the same way, I think with Freemasonry, like during a meeting, it's so easy to like, especially if you're an old, quote unquote, old timer Mason, or you've been around for a while, it can be so easy to I don't know what the word is, like zone out, because you might have heard somebody might be performing a lecture and you've heard it a million times, or heck, you might be performing some type of lecture and performed it a million times, and it's easy to kind of not be present and be thinking about other things, like, again, your laundry list, or what's on TV that night, or your bank account, or any problems that you may have in your life. But that practice of being present is so very important, I think, for both the candidate who's receiving the lectures, listening to them and understanding them, and trying to glean what they can, and also for the person giving them and the person in attendance to actually be present and be listening and be actively listening, and when you're delivering it, paying attention to how you deliver it, and not just zoning out. And I'm guilty of that as much as anybody. Dad, Michael, if you're still there, I don't know if you guys have the same experience, but it's so easy to zone out, if that makes sense, in a Masonic meeting. And you've been there a million times, you've heard it a million times. They're droning on about the minutes that you're not paying attention, but if you pay attention, you can almost always find something interesting, or something unique, or something that you didn't think about before. One of my favorite expressions is boring people get bored, which I really like. And I think that's true. I think, if you're bored in a Masonic meeting, maybe you're a boring person. So for whatever that's worth. Yeah, let me know what you think, Dad, if what you think is, if that's accurate, or if you guys have any similar thoughts or ideas. I may finish this one off a little bit short. Not that I haven't been enjoying it, but I may finish this one in about 5 minutes or so. We've got an hour and a half. So that's a really good length of time, I think, for this stream. But I don't want to go for too long this one. I may do, like I said, another one tomorrow, and we'll see. That's my favorite. Your favorite movie is Tommyknockers? That's a coincidence, and that's really, really cool. That was a TV movie from way back in the day, so that's an awesome coincidence if that's the case. I like Tommy Knockers. It's funny because Stephen King says it's like his least favorite book, but I really, really did like it. And I think that it's very yeah, because I love the metaphor, right? The book is all about drug addiction, and the Tommy Knockers are a representation of drug addiction and kind of this force that pushes you and takes over and makes you do things that you don't necessarily want to do, or that you feel like you have no control over. And obviously, it makes sense that it'd be about that, since Stephen King wrote it um, as an addict himself, and I believe he wrote it while he was still heavily addicted to alcohol, anyways. So it makes sense that he would kind of have that understanding. So I loved that as a metaphor. Someone who used to work with people who had substance abuse issues. It does make sense to me that you would have that kind of metaphor in the work. So yeah, I think it's underrated. I think it's underrated by Stephen King, first of all, as a underrated by Stephen King, because the author himself says it's one of his least favorite books, which I think is crazy because I think it's a great book. And in terms of the public, I think it's one of his least popular books. But again, I think it's got a really interesting metaphor. I think the characters are well written, and so there you go. That's what I think. Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate that as well. You're 43 years old. Well, I'm 40, so you got me beat by 3 years. I tried to. I was not happy when I turned 40. I can tell you that right now. But yeah. 43. So you got me beat by 3 years. My dad, Harry, who's on here, he's only 35. So, he's a young man compared to us. Maybe 36. It's great to see again people sticking around, but I may call this in about 3 minutes. Because I think we'll do a shorter one this time, but that's not to say we can't do a longer one again tomorrow or maybe the next day, because I have been really enjoying these. And the one thing I love about it is, maybe I'll share a picture of it. What you see in terms of the engagement. Let me just see if I can pull this up. If I could spell it correctly. Let's see. Here it is. All right, I'm just going to share this for a second. Oh, all right, Dad. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. I will see you. I'm going to actually call you. I haven't talked to you on so long. So I'm going to actually give you a call at some point. I know I'm going to be back in Winnipeg in October. Maybe we'll do a live stream together. You and I can talk on the computer together, and it'll be a lot of fun. So yeah. In the meantime, though, I want to show this. As you can see, this is going up pretty high here. This is watch time hours. So we're getting a ton more watch time. That's thanks to Courtney. That's thanks to my dad. That's thanks to people taking part in these live streams, which really helps with all of that. And I really, really do appreciate it. I appreciate, following me on social media, liking my stuff on Instagram, liking my stuff on Facebook. That stuff is also really, really appreciated. So yeah, by all means, I hope that you will keep doing so, and Courtney will, and I appreciate that very much. I'm going to see if I can do a thing where, like, every week I get a different different Mason maybe to join me, or different co-hosts. Doesn't have to be a Mason per se. Like we had Nicholas on, and that was a real blast. So it could be a lot of fun to have a lot of different guys on the live stream to chat and talk about what we've been up to. Let's say we do have some more people joining, though. I'll give it a second. If you want to put down in the chat what's going on and what you guys want to talk about, I'm happy to stick around for as long as you want. I'm going to be so excited to break bread with those Masonic brothers of yours and petition at the same. Good. Yeah, break bread by all means. That's having a meal with them is really, really special. And taking part in refreshment and petitioning and all that good stuff. So, like I said, I wish I could help you more, but I'm sure if you just, talk to them the way you've spoken to me and talk to them about why you want to join and what it's going to mean to you, that can only be a helpful and a special thing for them. So, and helpful for you. So yeah, we wish you, and I'm happy that you're excited. It's good to see excitement. I don't think we see nearly enough excitement from the brothers over the years. So, and it's funny because keeping that excitement, that's really important as well. And that's a real skill, right? One thing I'm really proud of is keeping, because it gets like a drag over time, right? I don't mean that in a negative sense necessarily. I think that's true for anything, but it just gets really tiring. And again, you can get so used to going to lodge meetings, and you've got your regular life and any challenges that are happening in your regular life and all the rest of it, that makes it super challenging to keep that excitement going. And excitement wanes, right? Like I think my excitement for Freemasonry has came and went, but in any case, all you can do in those cases, right, is if you feel like the excitement is waning a little bit, try to find ways to keep yourself entertained and try to keep your ways to keep yourself excited. Because it's a really important it's really important to find ways to keep excited. I think that's true in life. I'm going to go on a little bit of a thing here and say I think that that's really important in life as well, that you find ways to keep yourself excited, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed or whatever it is. I know, Courtney, if you've experienced that feeling of being overwhelmed, or Michael, if you're still there, if you've experienced that feeling of being overwhelmed, but when you do, in some cases, you just got to find ways to keep yourself excited as much as you can. So that's my humble opinion on that. But I hope that excitement keeps going for you as long as it can. If you can, guys, hope you can like and subscribe to the podcast. Because, hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, all that stuff helps with retention and with people finding it and commenting and being active in the chat and liking and blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff really, really does help. And Courtney, thank you for always helping, and Dad and everybody else who's still around. I really do appreciate it. I do think we've gone on for an hour and a half. So I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to go. If there is anything else we want to talk about, by all means, throw it in the chat. I'll give it a couple more minutes, but maybe we'll call this one because it's been a great chat. We had great turnout, and tomorrow, maybe we can do one that's a little bit longer. You can spend a few more hours doing it if that works for you. Thank you guys, though. I think we'll call this one for now. Thank you for taking part in this chat. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great night. I'll just say that in the chat as well. Oh, sorry. Before I go, I just got a thing from Courtney. Oh, Do I think the book is better than the movie of Tommy Knockers? Uh, I think they're different beasts. Like, it's so hard to say because movies versus books, it's like comparing apples to oranges, or apples to dogs. Like they're just so different. Books, especially a book like the Tommy Knockers, it's meant to be consumed over, a couple week period at least. Um, Whereas like a movie in this case, but the interesting thing is the Tommy Knockers movie felt more like the Tommy Knockers book in the sense that it was a TV movie. So it lasted for like, it was like a mini series. So it was like over a couple of nights. So it felt more like a book that way, than just a straight movie. But I mean, and the other thing is with the book, you're able to like imagine the characters looking the way you want them to look. Whereas with a movie, they're kind of set in stone as whoever the actors are portraying them. Movies tend to have to take out certain plot points or change plot points, so it is more cinematic. So they're different beasts, but I would go with book, to be honest. Um, yeah, I think book because I think in the book, the metaphor of drug addiction was more clear and more obvious as to what the metaphor was. Whereas in the movie, I don't think it was as clear. I think the movie was more kind of a standard horror movie. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I like the movie a lot too, but I think the book made that metaphor more clear. What do you think, Courtney? Do you prefer the book or do you prefer the movie? I'll see if you're still on. Maybe give it a couple minutes. You can always throw it in the comment though as well. Actually, and that's true for everybody. Maybe what I'll do is on my personal Twitter, personal X, whatever you call it, I will leave something in the chat, in terms of like the which people prefer. Because I'm curious what people say, or if people even know about it. Maybe I can leave something on YouTube, with the trailer for the movie. Um, but yeah, I will leave it there. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I will see you guys soon.